Jesse Waters has weighed in on the Trump hush money trial. We just spoke to Randall Eliason about that ongoing trial, which essentially centers around how Donald Trump paid hush money to Stormy Daniels through his lawyer, Michael Cohen, who actually did go do some time for this, paid $130,000 in installments back to Michael Cohen for paying that amount to Stormy Daniels. And the prosecution is alleging that this falsified business records, that this amounted to fraud, and also potentially election interference because this related to the election and he was trying to cover it up to get into office. And the case, while kind of convoluted on its face, is pretty straightforward in that Donald Trump is falsifying records seemingly all the time to suit his needs, whether it be to overinflate his assets when he wants like a favorable deal with a bank, or under represent them when it comes to the government so he can cheat out on his taxes, as the civil fraud judgment determined. The guy's a crook. He's a crook. Or is he the victim of the deep state? I bring you Jesse Waters.
Okay, Jesse, let me start with you. The prosecution says this is election fraud, and they say pure and simple. Is it?
I call it pure evil. So they've taken away his freedom of speech, and now they've taken away his freedom of movement.
Can you
so
pause
he has
it?
to sit there.
So they've taken away his freedom of speech, aka the judge placed a gag order on him because, and I'm gonna just give some free legal advice for Jesse Waters in the future, given his propensity to, like, you know, take out the tires in girls' cars, allegedly. What Donald Trump is, oh shoot, I totally lost my train of thought. What was he saying there? Oh, the freedom of speech, the gag order thing. Free advice. Don't attack the judge that's responsible for your case's child and put her photo on social media, and then you won't get a gag order. That's why Donald Trump's supposed freedom of speech is being curtailed, because he wouldn't stop truth socialing and posting about the case, amounting to interfering with the case, and then also going after the kid of the judge and putting her information out there. So, okay, go back a few seconds.
And now they've taken away his freedom of movement. So he has to sit there all week for 6 weeks, and if he says anything, they'll throw him in jail.
So boring. If
he leaves, they throw him in jail. That's crazy. I mean, they had more allowances for Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. I think they bought $1 million soccer field for the people in Gitmo. I don't know if Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was able to visit his son for his high school graduation, but it's similar. They're freezing him to death.
Sorry, I just have to say, like, you understand how brutal this country is and how we're not the good guys. Read Mohamedou Ould Salahi's book Guantanamo Diaries for what actual conditions were like for people who were detained with actual not evidence that they're terrorists at Guantanamo Bay. Disgusting to say that they're playing soccer.
You're saying that force feeding people who also, they just rounded up Muslim boys and men, and there were also dubious claims about their guilt, and they were held there indefinitely, force fed a tube down their throat in order to stop them from hunger striking for their conditions. You're saying that that's not the same as Donald Trump having to sit down in a chair for 6 weeks in New York City? No,
and it's so gross that I wouldn't even want to see Trump or frankly any Republican subjected to it. It's barbaric what we did what we probably still do at Guantanamo.
Yep, still dozens of those prisoners at Guantanamo.
To visit his son for his high school graduation, but it's similar. They're freezing him to death. They're putting him in a meat locker. He says it's like 45 degrees in there, and they're putting his life in danger, and they're telling the entire world, all the wackos, this is where the former president's going to be at this date, at this time, surrounded by high-rise buildings. And then they're seizing his bank accounts with these unconstitutional fines, unreasonable bond asks. It's disgusting. They say it's a fraud, but under existing election law, and I'm the only lawyer here at the table, candidates can't use campaign funds for an expense that would exist anyway, even if it benefits the campaign. So wait a second. I don't understand. If it's illegal to use campaign funds for personal issues, but it's also illegal to use personal funds for personal issues during a campaign, what was Donald Trump supposed to do? Either way, he's going to get prosecuted. That means it's just illegal for Donald Trump to be a candidate.
No.
Is what they're saying. What was he supposed to do?
That's the claim. And again, the laugh, he almost is being tongue-in-cheek when he talks about the air conditioning situation in the courtroom to compare it to the torture at Guantanamo Bay, again, being force-fed through their nose tubes when they were trying to stop eating in order to protest the already horrific conditions that they were subjected to. And the United Nations has said that torture happened in Guantanamo Bay, but not as bad as your HVAC being on 65 degrees instead of his preferred 68 degrees in the courtroom. I mean,
and you're not able to take like dog whistle remarks at like juries and
Right.
Legal professionals.
Right. What Donald Trump could have done is basically what he a straight up payment to Stormy Daniels and not concealing it. That's the problem. The problem is the fraud, not the payment to the person that he allegedly slept with, not that payment.
All of a sudden, a guy
cover-up.
can't pay to conceal facts about himself that might be relevant to a voting population. Like, what kind of country is this?
I mean, this is the party that's obsessing over the car payments from Hunter Biden to his dad.
Right.
And calling it car payments where they say that it's actually from China. They have no ties to say that, but they pretend like that's the biggest problem, is the falsification of these 3 separate checks, which isn't true, by the way.
Yeah.
Over car payments.
Brandon Carrot of Media Matters said, and this is true, like when I hear Jesse Waters talk about the they're going to bring him surrounded by these high-rise buildings, implying that there's going to be some sort of sniper there. These guys want Trump to get assassinated so badly because it would be
Oh my God.
so good for content, and it'd also get him out of the paint because I think secretly they think that we would be rolling Biden right now if we had somebody who wasn't under several indictments.
They're right. They're right. I mean, that was what we saw too with Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley, if she were the nominee, I think she would be beating Biden right now. I don't know if that's true.
Would she be able to win the primary though, or would some
but
other
that's the
freak
point.
do it? Yeah,
That's the point. Is that right
even if
now?
Trump was dead, it'd be some kind of other psycho, I think.
Right. I mean, right now, the Republican base does not want a Nikki Haley or somebody that's a little bit more palatable to a general election audience. They want Trump or they want Trump adjacent. And there's not that much of an appetite for it right now. It's just the terrifying question is whether or not the apathy towards Biden or outright disgust with him, I think from the left, is enough to counteract that.
Remember Dealey Plaza, okay? When we take hairpin turns, you keep rolling. Go faster, actually. Maybe change the pace a little bit. Do not slow down. Like an orange hair will be seen from miles away.
Joe Snuffy said, can you guys help us picture what a post-Zionist America would look like? We've seen over the last half year a shocking extent of the penetration of all aspects of our society, from government to media to academia to business to policing and even landlords. And given how ubiquitous and integrated Zionism seems to be within most power structures within America, I'm not sure what will change when we throw Zionism in the ideological waste bin.
I don't know. I feel like maybe this is too optimistic, but young people aren't Zionists or supporters of Israel, like, especially going to be after this. I think what we're seeing now is a desperate grip for power by a bunch of old people who generationally failed on this issue, frankly, decided that actually the way to solve this issue of anti-Semitism in Europe is a settler colonial project. And that has been one of the most disastrous projects of the past 100 years. And I think, I remember, again, not to mention, I keep mentioning Orwell, and of course there's criticisms of Orwell to be made. But when he talks about, he was a son of somebody who served in the British Raj in India, and Orwell himself did. And he said basically it stopped looking like a project that had any kind of legs at a certain point, from within like the class of people who had to reproduce it. And I think Israel's going to start looking like that soon too. I don't think think it's going to, maybe this is just me wishful thinking at a very dark time, but I just don't think this can reproduce itself for another generation. I think it's cooked.